Paul, can you hear us? Testing, testing.
Can you hear Paul?
Here's Paul.
Yeah, I'm starting to hear you now.
We can't hear you.
Right.
Here, let me turn on the volume. Yeah. Turn on the volume on this one.
Always still have to communicate with written messages for us to hear him.
Okay, try again, Paul.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
I just forwarded you the paperwork from that you asked. Did you get it? It went to your
Director voice there.
yeah, I just realized it went to your Comcast account. Did you get that?
Did you get the paperwork at your Comcast account, Paul?
Yeah, oh, yeah, I just got it a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I just sent it to you a few minutes ago.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, if I'm not hearing you, the meeting isn't being recorded.
Yeah, we realize that.
Okay.
Well, he can hear us now, so now it's being recorded.
Okay, so now
It's probably not going to be a very good recording because it's a long distance from where we could all gather close around this computer and talk, but it's not going to be, it's definitely not going to be as good as normal. And
we'll all need to use outside voices. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. So the last thing we talked about was there is no specific direction that at 257 and Stark. It's kind of just 257 and Stark at overall. So, all right. Moving on. Next page covers community meetings and community contacts. So, you know, significantly, those are here at the TPCC. So that's when somebody comes in and one of our deputies ends up meeting with them and things like that. Next page is covers traffic stops. So as you can see, there's a total of 128 traffic stops. 87 of those traffic stops had warnings issued. There was 29 non-criminal citations issued. 5 arrests or citations in lieu of arrest were made. 5 physical arrests where somebody was actually taken into custody. And then in 2 of those instances, there was no arrest, but a report was written. Next page covers the cases referred to detectives for the month. So there was 10 new cases referred to detectives. Of those cases in July that were referred, 5 of those were disposed. So there was some resolution to those cases. And then in addition to those 5, there was 4 previous Troutdale cases that were disposed. Vehicles reported stolen for the month of July, there were 3 this month, and that's up 1 from last month, but still below the previous year's average. Unfortunately, didn't recover any stolen vehicles this month, and however, last month we recovered 2. So that covers that. As I kind of mentioned already, I looked over the calls for service log for the month of July in Troutdale, and there was nothing that stood out as unusual. I didn't see anything that was indicated a pattern of new criminal activity or anything like that. So generally pretty typical month, especially in the summer for the city of Troutdale. So that is all I have, at least on this topic.
Yes, I just have I have 2 clarifying questions.
Okay.
One is around the traffic accidents, and then I'm just wondering, this occurred to me. I know crash data can be used by, insurance companies to set rates and such. And so I live just across the street, and I haven't seen any high car insurance
Right.
rates. And so I'm wondering if this is, reporting these as right here is leading to.
Well, probably not, because the actual, if there's an actual written Oregon DMV crash report, that is going to indicate where the incident
Okay.
occurred. This is based on call data in the CAD system, which indicates where the person is when they're reporting.
Okay, so this won't go anywhere.
Well, it goes a lot of places, but I don't know that,
Hopefully
that
later.
we're making this accessible to insurance companies.
Okay, thank you. And the other one is, just because I like Miami Vice in the eighties. On the first, page here, we have Vice, and we don't have one. What does that mean?
So Vice is usually a drug and or prostitution call that doesn't fit any other criminal category up here. So if, for example, somebody calls and says, I think I saw somebody sitting in their car in the outlet mall using drugs, that would show in the CAD system as a Vice call. So that would be the type of call that it would be. Usually, if they get there and they make an arrest based on some kind of drug offense, that would fall, it would turn it into a different type of call. So Vice calls are kind of just those, we think we see somebody. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Just, this front page and this information, do those correspond to then this back page, the back pages here, or do they reflect the same information or not?
So you're asking if the calls on this first page, if these are representative of those calls?
Yeah.
Generally, yes.
Okay,
Now, it's an imperfect system and calls drop off depending on how they're categorized and things like that. And keep in mind, it's two different programs that create these. They draw from kind of the same data, but they do so in different ways. And so sometimes you will see some variance, not significant, but not anything that really impacts the public safety of the city of Troutdale.
okay, yeah, once again, it's always about me. It's just my curiosity, like burglaries are at 9 and they were previous was at 1. So I wondered if I looked in the info data, I would find where the burglaries sort of were at.
You should be able to find those.
Okay.
And that's assuming that there wasn't like a follow-up call that was addressing a previous burglary from a previous month.
Okay.
Because some of those could potentially create the appearance of a call that may have occurred this month, but it actually didn't occur this month. It might have been on a previous one of these reports.
Okay, the same thing like with vandalism, it would show up back in here too.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I didn't get a chance to review that, but just for my own curiosity, that's all.
Captain, I was wondering on the page under detective case activity,
Uh-huh.
the second one down on July 4th, it's the DOII alcohol, and there was a detective case. I'm just wondering, I know that I don't expect you to pull all the contacts out of your hat, but do you have like any idea of what would prompt a detective case to be assigned to something like the DOII?
Based on what that says, it shows it to be a misdemeanor case. So to give you good information on that, I'd actually have to pull that case up and see what it had. And like I said, because I only got this a few hours ago, I didn't have enough time to Usually I'll kind of look at and pull some of this data, but I didn't have that opportunity today.
Good. And then the other question I had was not related to any of this at all. It was actually about a comment that you made during the last meeting.
Okay.
Kind of passing where you had, towards the end of the report, you said, and then there was the plane that had crashed at the Columbia River. And I'm just wondering, I know that you said the FAA is taking over the investigation, but given the fact that it's now almost 2 months later, has there been any sort of updates or anything on that?
No, the FAA, federal agency, in 2 months is like 1 day. So, generally speaking, with crash, and particularly a crash like that, where most of the evidence of the crash went to the bottom of the river.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Was any of it retrieved or anything?
Yes, they went out and made attempts to retrieve, and I think they actually got the majority of the plane out of the river, but.
Because I know it's a shipping lane.
Yeah, it takes months, sometimes a year, for FAA to kind of release their findings. They do a pretty significant investigation.
Good to know. Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Okay, then moving on to agenda item number 6. This plan expectations of law enforcement under House Bill 4002. And I apologize, you guys got such a big packet. I meant for that to be sent as a link for reference. And that, if Captain Asgood had a chance, he was very busy, but he said, oh, I might highlight what pages you guys might need, and that was maybe going to be included. What? We got busy, and we forgot about that, and so I got the packet, what the heck? I messed up, I didn't communicate that correctly, so that's why your packets are. But anyhow, he's going to talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, did anybody have an opportunity to start reading through this 65 pages of excitement? So, I can tell you there's a ton of information, okay, but realistically speaking, from kind of a public safety standpoint, as it would affect us directly, is that this bill reestablished or recriminalized user amounts or a unclassified misdemeanor possession of controlled substance. And it gave some recommendations to law enforcement. It actually, so it is page 29 and 30, I believe. So 29, so these are kind of the pages that really greatly impact us. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here about task forces and ways that insurance deals with treatment and things like that. And that's why it's such a lengthy bill. But the parts that really kind of apply to us and our day-to-day lives are that page 29, where it talks about recriminalizing and the possession of controlled substance, misdemeanor provisions for that. And then equally as important is page 30, where section 36, where it talks about deflection programs. And so what the bill in essence said is that it encouraged law enforcement officers throughout the state to, in lieu of arresting or citing someone for one of these recriminalized drug offenses, it asked or encourages them to take somebody to a deflection center. So basically, a deflection center is an opportunity where somebody can be taken to a center and they can get access to treatment options as opposed to being lodged in jail and going through the criminal justice process. So all of our counties in the state are impacted by this in one way or another. And as with any bill or law that comes out, there's a lot of different interpretations of what the bill says. So we're in this is all begins and goes into effect on September 1st, which is just a mere 30, roughly 30 days away. So the county is currently working on building a deflection center, which is down on, I think it's 9th and Sandy.
900 South.
Yeah, 900, so 9th and Sandy. So that is where we will have the opportunity to take people in lieu of taking them to jail. And once this deflection center is set up, at the deflection center, the individual will be able to go in there and be assessed, and then be given opportunities to meet with other service providers who could hopefully address their addiction issues or maybe any other issues they may have. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. I can tell you that we don't know 100% yet what this looks like. The center's not completed yet. The county has contracted with an outside organization from Baltimore, Maryland, to essentially manage this deflection center. So we don't know 100% what this looks like. What we do know is that we want to make sure that this bill increases or improves public safety for everyone, not only those who may be experiencing a substance abuse disorder, but for the community at large. So I know the sheriff has been working with the chiefs of the other chiefs in the county and making recommendations to the chair on, you know, how we think we can best make this happen and balance the needs of those that are having substance abuse issues versus the needs of the community at large. But I will be honest with you and say that I don't know 100%, and I can't sit here and tell you this is exactly what's going to happen every time, because we're not 100% sure yet. And it's a totally, although the idea of deflection is not new, and realistically it's been given a lot of other names before that were the same thing. At one time we called it pre-arrest diversion, and so there's a lot of different names for what deflection is. But the House bill is all new, and so everybody's kind of looking at it and interpreting it and trying to figure out what the best practice is for making this work and making it impactful to those who need those additional services and still maintaining good community safety. So we think we at the sheriff's office will be ready to start taking people to a deflection center come September 1st. So we'll be ready to put that to actually execute that at our level out on the street. I would say one thing to consider is that this really only applies to kind of a very small number of people that police may encounter, because it's very specific to an individual that is in violation of the unclassified misdemeanor as it's spelled out in this House bill, but they have no other crime. So they were doing no other thing for the police to come into contact with them. And during some random contact, they're found to be in possession of drugs and in violation of this unclassified misdemeanor. So this is not like going to be every person that law enforcement ever contacts that is experiencing a substance abuse disorder is going to fit into this. It's kind of limited in scope to who can utilize this service, at least currently. So I'll be able to tell you a little bit better post September 1st, kind of how it's being executed. And the other thing is that I will know better when we actually see if that deflection center is completed by September 1st, because it's a big task to put an entire center like that together and staff it and do all those things in, just a few short months. So if that is in place and we're able to start taking people down to this deflection center, at that point, we can really start having regular evaluations on what's working and what's not working. So is it effective, and is the way we're doing it an effective way to do it? So there's going to be ongoing evaluations, not only by, of course, the state and the county, but by the sheriff's office and our partner agencies as well, because we're all going to be looking at what's working and what's not working, and how can we make this work the best and most efficient way possible. So unfortunately, I can't sit here and tell you exactly how it's going to happen. What I can say is, just like any bill, there's a lot of difference of opinion on what it means, and that takes a little time to work that out and find some common ground on where we can all agree that that's what either the letter or the spirit of the law is. So we're still working through some of that and making sure that we're kind of meeting everybody's needs and kind of finding a good balance there on what works for everybody.
Yes, back a while ago, we had Cooper Detox Center, and so people could access that. There was many modalities. Is the deflection center, will it have that same kind of, like, if somebody needs help and resources, they could kind of just contact that also, or is it just primarily for those who meet the criteria and law enforcement?
So the deflection center is going to be relatively small as compared to, kind of what, Hooper was a sobering center. I know the county is in talks on what a new sobering center looks like, which would work in concert with this deflection center. I know the intent of that is to be a walk-up place where anybody can walk up there. I don't know that this will necessarily, I can't say one way or the other, whether they're going to have that kind of capacity to
know they're thinking about
right.
that.
So I think realistically, this is, when we look at kind of a short timeline to set something up to take on a massive task, this is kind of the, hey, we can get this set up by the date that we're required to have this going. But we know we got to have some bigger plans, and we got to be thinking larger scale, and how do we ultimately move forward? Because I think part of the goal and part of some of the talks about the long term is having not just a place for people with substance abuse disorder, but also people with mental disorders, or people that are houseless, and kind of people who have all kinds of different issues going on, so it can serve a much greater portion of the community.
I understand Portland police haven't been trained for this yet. Does Multnomah County have a training schedule?
So I am working with the city of Portland and law enforcement leaders from the city of Gresham. The sheriff is working with the chiefs of both those agencies. And I think training is kind of, at this point, we wouldn't really be able to put out a training because we're not 100% sure what it looks like. So right now, we're still in the phase of kind of identifying how this is going to work, what best practices are, and what's most impactful for everybody involved. I think as we kind of finalize some of those things, then we can start talking about training our deputies and officers on what that's supposed to look like. So I think we're kind of too early to actually train anybody on it yet, because we haven't even really seen what all is going to be offered there. So I know from the perspective of law enforcement, we're looking forward to meeting with the organizers and those that will be running this center to get a better picture of what deflection and what will be available to people at the center, because that will give us a better idea of who best fits to go down there. So there's still a lot of moving pieces, and like I said, even come September 1st, this will not be in a perfect system. And I think it's going to take some constant reevaluation to continually improve on start at our starting point. I think the main goal is, or the main premise is, at least we have started something, right? And now we have some place to work from, because as we all know right now, there's not a lot of options for people who might be seeking treatment. And there's long wait lists, and it's difficult to get in. And the person who has decided today that they're ready to go and get clean and change their life may have to wait several weeks. And in several weeks, a lot can happen in a person's life. And, you know, it's challenging to get someone to be on that same kind of wavelength they were the day they asked, 2, 3, a month, 2 months later. So
Also, they're supposed to stay in deflection for at least 30 days. And I don't know if they've pounded out this question yet. So deflection didn't work. The next day you find them again. How many times are they allowed to choose deflection?
That's a great question, and we're asking that same question. It hasn't been figured out yet. So you kind of touch on 2 points. One is they're supposed to be in deflection for 30 days. Obviously, 30 days, that's a process. So, you know, just day 1 of 30, just because they showed up there, they're not cured of their substance abuse disorder. So we know that there's the potential that we could run into people again, potentially, that are currently involved in deflection, but are still potentially using because they haven't got to the places that they need to go yet, and they're still working through that. We also haven't identified yet, you know, what is the number, you know, what's the big number that, how many times can somebody use deflection? And, you know, there's a lot of different kind of trains of thought. There's folks who believe that, like, there should not be any number, because every time you can get somebody down, there's a little more likelihood that they might get clean. And then there's others that say at some point we have to have accountability to that. And there has to be, like, at some point you go, okay, you've been to deflection, you know, 5 times or 99 times or whatever the case may be. Now you've ran out of times. So, you know, that's a challenging one, because people are really polarized on their opinions on that. You know, those who believe that you give them an infinite number of times are very committed to their belief that you give them an infinite number of times. And those that believe that there should be a point of accountability at some number that's pulled out of space, they're very committed to that. So that is one of those things we're working to find kind of a good balance where everybody can at least concede that we're meeting the needs of the person who is got a substance abuse disorder and the community at large.
So since this is a House bill, does that mean every county is tackling this problem, or city, or how's it working?
So this is talking about counties. So it's directing counties to do this work. So, but part of it is, so with this House bill, the legislature also included some grant money to help counties do this. Because, you know, this is an expensive venture for any county, but you look at some counties, it would be, you know, it would bankrupt them to try to put something together like this. So there is grants that the state is giving out for this. And there's some expectations of those grants, and part of, I think, of that expectation is that if a county is choosing to do this and they're using the state money, that every law enforcement agency in that county will be on board and committed to making this work. So generally, if you look at all the counties, many of the counties are in the process of getting all their law enforcement partners together within the county to kind of, and we're all doing the same thing. We're talking about what's best practices and what kind of works. So the short answer to your question is yes, if a county is doing deflection, they are going to be involving every law enforcement agency in the county. And that's why we're partnering with the Portland Police Bureau and Gresham Police.
Okay, then as a follow-up, if deflection in Multnomah County is 99 and done, and it's 5 and done in Washington County, and it's, I don't know, 50 and done, will it tend to move more people that want to be able to openly use or not have to go to jail or whatever? I mean, I don't totally understand the whole thing, but with the ideas of Multnomah County potentially harboring more or having to deal with more.
Yeah, that's a good thought, and that, I mean, for realistically, I mean, that's certainly a consideration, and you know, and that we talk about this a lot in everything we do, even within our own community here. We talk about consistency among our cities here because of those very reasons, right? So I think that at some point, and hopefully as we kind of look at what's working and we're evaluating, you know, one of the things we'll have to evaluate is, do we see that there's a point, a number of times that somebody's been to deflection where we see this sudden across the board, like significant change. So we look at everybody who's been deflected in the state and we go, holy cow, we look at this and every time somebody hits 5 times, for example, we never see them. They never get deflected again. They go on, right? So I think that there's going to be a lot of looking at data and looking at how many times people are being deflected and where people are making significant changes, or there's the deflection program is having significant impact. So for a while, there's going to be some of that. As I said, people are going to interpret this differently and counties are going to interpret this differently. And so I think for a period of time, we are going to have some of that where one county's doing it this way, or maybe they say this is the amount of times and another county's doing it another way. So I think though, within a pretty short period of time, we'll at least have some data to start paring that number down, you know, paring that number down and getting consistent with our other counties.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate because I listened to somebody talking about something and that saying that they were concerned because how is it being identified? They're not really getting written up and they're taken to deflection, and because it's not really being recorded, you wouldn't know the next time if they've been deflected a previous time.
It'll definitely be recorded.
Okay.
We'll be documenting, you know, because realistically, regardless of whether they voluntarily choose to go to deflection as opposed to going to jail, the entire premise of the whole reason we're having this conversation with them is because they committed the unclassified misdemeanor offense. So they have committed a crime. So we have an obligation to document that, even if in lieu of going to jail, they took this alternative option of going to deflection, we'll still be documenting that that occurred. So, and I'm quite sure that the deflection center will be documenting the steps and that a person takes, and because certainly the state as well as the county is going to want to have all this data to look back at what's working and what's not working.
This is Robbie. Just to follow up on that conversation, I cannot find it for the life of me now because it's lost in the pages.
Mhm.
I did see somewhere in here that the deflection program was to be offered after the citation was issued, but before it was referred to the district attorney.
You're right.
So-
It's in section 36 at the bottom.
Yeah, when we're talking about like people doing unlimited uses or 5 uses of deflection, you also had said before that it would be, we're talking about a very small, minute number of people because they wouldn't have had previous crime on their record. So wouldn't the deflection essentially be a one-time use, because if they're going to deflection, it would have already been issued a citation?
So, couple pieces. First is, it's not that they don't have any other crime on their record. It's that at the time that they're caught with this unclassified misdemeanor, they are not currently committing any other crimes.
Okay, so they can't have previous charges.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
that's-
it would be super limiting to say that we're gonna take people who have substance abuse disorders who have never committed a crime before in their life. Like, that would be like a teeny sliver of a population. So, so yes, the short answer is that they will have additional shots at deflection. We don't know what that number is yet, but they will have an additional shots, and they won't be limited by the fact that they may have a criminal past. The only thing that limits them is, were they committing other crimes at the time that they committed this unclassified misdemeanor?
Mhm.
Or did they have a outstanding warrant for a previous crime? Things like that.
And this is Robbie, when you were talking about the reporting, that you're saying, you definitely want to report, are we reporting, and obviously I know that we're talking about the nuances here, but when we looked at, I think it was page 59, under section 75, under data tracking, it said that realistically the data that we need to be tracking for demographic disparities in enforcement would be A, B, C there. So the date and location of each deflection and arrest, the specific offense for which each person was arrested, charged, or convicted, and then the demographic data for each person, deflected, arrested, charged, or convicted. So under point C, when we talk about demographic data for each person, deflected, arrested is where I want to place sentences, and then the secondary or means that it could be one of any of those options. Are we going to be reporting, even if that person does not choose deflection, even if the deflection centers are not ready by September 1st, like let's say on September 2nd, it happens, or there's a scenario that fits the bill for somebody who would have the option to go to deflection? Are we still tracking that data?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, and so in this, they've kind of laid out like this is kind of the base data that we need. But like every agency, I can almost assure you, is going to identify like, well, what data do we need?
Mhm.
And, you know, in a day, in a time of where there's a great focus on like evidence-based policing and using data to direct policing efforts, like I guarantee you there'll be a significant amount of data maintained
Right.
on each arrest. And so at very least, we're going to have at least the data that would go into any police report that we write. So, you know, we're going to have the who, what, when, and where of data. So that'll be the very least that's captured. And then when they get to the deflection center is going to capture whatever data they see
Right.
necessary. And then the state's going to capture whatever. So there'll be so many sources of data for this, and at many different levels, that I think I don't envy the folks who statisticians that got to purse all that data.
They chose their.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Robbie again, just for the other members of the community, the thing that originally piqued my interest to find that was if we look on page 30, section 37, it says that under 2A, no later than 12 months after the effective date of the 2024 Act, the commission is gonna conduct a study to determine best practices, but more importantly, the next line down, it says for funding of the Oregon Behavioral Health Deflection Program as described in the Act. So just zooming out to like the bigger picture, I know that we're bogged down in the nuances of what happened with these people, but I'm more focused so on the data of what's gonna happen eventually, and then if you continue reading, it said like in 3 years, this will happen in 5 years, so I do see the long-term plan, and I just, as a data focused person in my work, I just like to get data from the get-go, so just ensuring that on September 1st, we're starting to log those things. Additionally, and it seems like you, at this point, the way that you've been speaking about it, you kind of identified the identification criteria for the people that either fit or don't fit.
Like the eligibility criteria?
To the best of your ability.
Yeah. It's really a pretty simple eligibility criteria. It's that they are in violation of the recriminalized possession or drug laws that are in this statute. And they don't have there is no other crime going on at the same time. So right now, that's kind of that's a very like, kind of generalized, like, those are the things, that's the people that fit this.
As not a drug user, what is this amount, or what does it like the neighbor that decides to, I don't know, smoke his pot or something like that, that's all legal?
Yeah, marijuana is not gonna apply.
Okay.
This is for meth, heroin, fentanyl.
And is there,
cocaine.
a certain amount that would be more than just like a tiny bit, or like, I mean, I don't really know.
It's basically user amounts is what the
Okay.
what the misdemeanor, and user amounts can kind of like vary by opinion, but we're talking what a normal person has on them at any given time.
So more
to
than that,
use.
that wouldn't be deflection, that would go to a different level of distribution. It's dependent on if they meet, because outside of just possession, then you have a variety of other drug laws that were never decriminalized. So you have like distribution and manufacturing. So like when you look at amounts, usually you look at, is that such a great amount that it fits one of those other things? If somebody has, 6 pounds of meth, like that's not a user amount. And especially then you look at things like, do they have scales and baggies and all this other stuff? Okay, that's probably a distribution case. That doesn't apply here. Okay.
So it's referencing the newly recriminalized, which is that essentially possession of user amounts of narcotics.
Sherry, this is Robbie. It's on page 25, all the breakdowns of it.
Yes.
Specifically, it's 8 grams for cocaine or meth. As long as we're being candid. As long as we're being candid.
Well, that's why I didn't give you the number, because nobody knows what 8 grams of meth looks like, so. Yeah, but Robbie's right. It really lays out like, and it's like, you got to take some time to study that, because it gets down to 8 grams of this, 8 grams of that, 20 or more pills of this. And so it's very complex kind of system, but that's why I just kind of allude to user amounts, because
I appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to years ago when you would go down to the little store there and they would have those papers, all the pictures and the charges of people that
Oh yeah.
and I never saw any that were just one charge. So in like a typical week, how many people do you think would fit the criteria in this program?
Very few. You're absolutely right. we generally, because realistically, just to get police involvement, there's usually something else going on, right? And a portion of this is law enforcement's involvement. So we had to have gotten involved with that person somehow. And so, you know, maybe we got involved in because they were with them because there was a disturbance, but it wasn't actually, didn't reach the level, a criminal level. And then we find during that investigation that they have this, that would kind of be the person that fits into there. But you're right, it is a small amount.
I have a question, okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Are we spending billions of dollars and millions of dollars for a program for a very minute group of people? Because we spent lots of thousands of dollars on the homeless, and they were supposed to track all this, and they never did.
Mm-hmm.
And it would turned out to be a real nightmare. I mean, I come from a family background whose sister died of heroin overdose.
Mm-hmm.
So none of the programs she went to ever helped her.
All right.
And it didn't help half of my relatives either.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get over that hump of, I mean, I'm one that wants to save everybody.
Right.
So how do we get over that bridge?
That is the big question, right? Because we as law enforcement have tried all different angles of this, right? We tried arresting people that were users, right? Then we focused on, well, let's cut out the dealers, right? Street level dealers. And well, let's try getting like the cartel members and the, you know, so you're asking the big question, which if we had the answer, we would not be recording and we'd all be millionaires because we'd fix this problem. But I will say, even though it is generally, it's kind of a finite amount of people that are going to meet this on any given day, the thing is, there is no absence of people who are have substance abuse disorder. And on any given day, they could fit the criteria here. So realistically, you could say that every individual that has a substance abuse disorder could potentially meet this criteria. Like, generally speaking, we're going to find them, it's going to be a slow process to get people and where they actually fit the criteria to go to deflection. But I mean, realistically, if you did this long enough, eventually we would have contact with everybody, because if people are continuing to use drugs, eventually we're going to hit that perfect day where they meet this criteria. So it's kind of a, yes, it's a small group of people if you look at it from a month-to-month standpoint. But if you look at it long-term and you kind of extrapolate that over a period of months and years, like the goal would be that at some point, everybody gets an opportunity to do this because they were in the right place at the right time to meet this criteria.
But, okay, Ms. Sherry, you were saying right now that if somebody wants to get treatment, they might get put in a queue.
That's true.
Wait. So it'd be like ideal to say, Cat Maslow, come see me on September 1, and I do a little drugs in front of you. And, and you take me in. Right, I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, just like the person, like, if there was somebody that wanted help, and we're not offering it in one way, they're gonna, I mean.
That's a great point. And honestly, if they want in that bad that they're willing to do that, God bless them. Like, I will absolutely take them to deflection and get them the help that they need, because that's commitment to getting clean. So I would have zero problem with that, because clearly they would have been doing the drugs anyway. So if they're that committed, no problem. We'll get them down there.
It's a shame that it has to get to that level. Like,
well,
you can just get into some program ahead of time if you really want.
I agree. And if, you know, the problem is that much like many of the livability challenges that we are facing, whether it's mental health issues or houselessness, like there is way more people experiencing that issue than there is services or resources to address that issue. And that is really the challenge. This is not like the golden gun to fix it. This is just giving people some other resource and some other opportunity. And I think as we look down the road and we look at, you know, a much larger, potentially much larger sobering center where people can walk in, like you said, the person who wants to go, they can literally take a, you know, a cab down there or get on transit and go down there. Like, this is just kind of, we're just scratching the surface of what we could potentially have, but it's obviously a long process because people have been using drugs for a long time and we still don't have a good fix for, you know, drug abuse. So it's just another try, another option, and see if we can get somewhere with it. And hopefully it's a building block to bigger things.
I just, I hope it works, I really honestly do.
Me too.
It
I
seems
just
so
worry.
like a big festering wound, and we're like doctoring one little tiny side of
Yeah.
it. And it's just this huge problem here otherwise, and it's not really,
Well, again, it's like all those other challenges, like they're all big, huge challenges and they're big jobs to take on. And there's no clear-cut answer because just like people are experiencing houselessness, like people who are addicts have every possible different reason for being an addict that you could possibly imagine, right? And so, you know, it's like you literally get into contact with somebody and you got to find that perfect match for, you know, what was the triggers that got them down that road? Are they using because they have mental health issues and they're self-medicating to deal with those mental health issues? And then that in itself creates the challenge of now you have two issues. You have somebody who has a mental health issue and an addiction issue. So is there a place for people with like dual diagnoses, right? There's some place for people with both those. And then, so yeah, it's the problem with trying to put a one size fits all fix on a problem that is not one size fits all. So it's just a shot at a different idea, a different way. You know, trying to reach to maybe a different type of person that we haven't reached before. And it's kind of one of those things where, as you mentioned, putting a Band-Aid on a big wound, right? Well, do we put a Band-Aid on it or we just keep letting it get infected? You know?
you know, I think for myself, I was kind of thinking that, do you think there's something else that we should be doing that we're not doing? Or like something that, because to me, ignorance when it comes to this whole situation kind of, if you were able to stop all of the cartels from the drugs that came across the border or whatever, would it stop the problem?
Probably not.
Right?
I mean, because I can tell you, I've been in law enforcement for 27 years now. So I remember before cartels really significantly impacted, like aside from cocaine importation, which really in our part of the country wasn't hugely used. That's more of kind of a East Coast thing. But there was a time where we were going into it and taking down several mom and pop meth labs a week, you know? So the point being that people who are suffering from addiction will always find a way to you know, suit that need. And there's always somebody out there who's willing to capitalize on the fact that somebody needs that stuff. So, yeah, again, that's like the $1 million question. Is there other things we should be doing, or what is the fix to this? And I really truly believe it is a massive approach of you need enforcement and accountability, you need programming, you need in-school programming to start working with people when they're young. So, you know, like kind of back to the old days of the, you know, DARE programs and things like that. And so there's a ton of levels, and you could even look at like family counseling for families that are having trouble. So yeah, it's just one little piece of that giant puzzle of what we should be doing.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on that I am actually hopeful if they have somebody managing this program effectively, the data piece is gonna be huge because we can take what's working and expand upon that. And in some ways, as a taxpayer, I'm appreciative that it is small and hopefully well managed so that we can grow where we know things are working and stop the pieces that aren't.
Absolutely. And I think the important thing is, you know, making sure to get all the involved parties to the table. And, you know, and I think that is one thing that right now is it's good that we're taking the appropriate amount of time to get everybody involved and really have a discussion about, you know, what does law enforcement think is the best practice? What does outreach think is the best practice? What does treatment think is the best practice? So that way we can kind of find some middle ground there. And then, as you said, evaluate that statistical data to see if that's working.
So just to go back to this Ninth and Sandy facility,
Mhm.
is it an existing building, so they're just re-fixing it up? Okay.
Yeah,
And then is this, everybody in Multnomah County would be taken there, but not Washington County, they would have their own and.
that is correct.
Okay,
So each county is responsible for having their own deflection center. And at this point, because, you know, we're going on kind of interpretations of what was said here, everybody's is probably going to be slightly different, and everybody's interpretation is going to be slightly different, which, although frustrating in the outset, is kind of good because you're really going to be able to identify those things that this, you know, you can look at something and go, well, that clearly didn't work. So that's not a good idea. Or, hey, this has been really successful. And then other counties start getting on board with that. So, you know, there is some benefit to having a lot of different kind of interpretations of how this looks. Is we get data from a lot of different ways of doing it.
okay, that's what I was just gonna say, and we're gonna share this, it's working over in Clackamas.
Absolutely.
It isn't, you know, learning from each other, so.
So the state they will be responsible for collecting data from each of the counties and then going through that data and identifying, you know, what's working in each county and comparing that data from county to county.
Is there an action item for us that we should be focused on right now?
I think just keeping track. If you haven't seen, there's a lot of news about House Bill 4002 right now. We're kind of getting down to the wire on you know, go live date. So just be keeping track, and you know, please feel free to, you know, reach out to me in this committee as we get moving forward with this, and you start seeing, or you see something, or you have a question about, like, I saw this in the news and that doesn't seem right, or we can certainly readdress this as I can tell you more about what it looks like. Because I'm hopeful that, you know, probably not September 1st, but, you know, by November or so, I can kind of say, hey, here is the process from the time a law enforcement officer contacts this person to the time that they finish their 30 days in deflection. So I'm hopeful that it won't be long before I can really lay out what that looks like for you, at least as the way that we're going to be doing it in Multnomah County.
Do you have any other questions? it probably says it in this paperwork, but it's so small for me to read.
Oh, yeah.
So this facility will house, you said maybe like 12 people or?
I think it's like, and don't hold me to this, but I think it was like 14 beds they had.
Okay, 14 beds, so they'll be sort of under house arrest for 30 days in this program?
Not really, because it's voluntary.
So they can just come and
They
go at
could,
will?
they could decide to leave if they
If
wanted
they
to.
leave and they're just planning on coming back, like they say, oh, I got a job I'm going to, or something like that, is it like that?
That I don't know yet, and I won't really probably have a good picture of what that looks like until we've had an opportunity to meet with those that are gonna be kind of running the place, but
And we're
my
gonna-
guess is that if somebody leaves, and this is just my guess, is that there's gonna be enough people that need that bed, that if you're not willing to stay there and put the work in, that they're gonna try to get an opportunity for the next person.
And so, do they test them on whether they'll be using drugs?
Whether they're staying clean through the
Yeah.
time, that I don't know either.
Okay.
And keep in mind that not every person that goes into deflection is going to meet likely their requirements for an inpatient.
Okay.
Some people might be referred out to other resources. I'm hopeful that this deflection center will build relationships with other treatment facilities throughout throughout Multnomah County. And so they'll have tons of resources to send people to, and they can really start to identify what's a person's needs and where's the appropriate place to meet that person's needs. And let's get them into that place. So I don't anticipate that the deflection center is really going to be the long-term, like, this is where they're going to be completely cured from addiction. That's just a starting point to get them pointed in the right direction and hopefully get them to the people where they can actually have some success.
Thank you.
Just lots of questions.
I,
I'm hoping that will come forth, as this program opens up, because if they're needing, trauma, if they're needing, family counseling, if they're needing, all sorts of different things, my hope is that there's gonna be openings in our community that will take them, to talk with them and not a waiting list,
absolutely.
and that's my concern is having blocks. I hope that there's going to be, so I'm just waiting to see how this is gonna, play out, and these questions will be answered.
Yes. And you are not alone in having lots of questions. We all have lots of questions, and we too are hopeful that we'll start to get those answers as we learn some best practices.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
All right. On to agenda item 7, the safety survey. Okay, well, so I did meet with Ray, and he just has concerns. He really feels that having a professional group because he's totally fine with us moving forward. I told him that it was my opinion, and I thought it was that we're trying to get a sense of how the community feels. Feelings are feelings, you know what? Because he said, well, these questions, they can be so much about how someone's feeling, not fact-based. Well, I just said, I think that's what we want. We are very interested in how our community feels safe. So he said we could move forward if we would like to, totally. He could allocate a little bit of money for us if we needed very much. I looked into SurveyMonkey, which looks to be, the one I looked at before was a professional computer version. It's $1,400 a year, but this one is like $468, and you might even be able to use the $300 a year version. I just haven't built the survey enough completely to know all the options. I was trying to build it myself because the staff doesn't have. Well, he said, I don't have much staff time, but they could put a link, if you provide a link, you can put that in, and he was gonna look into, they can put it on their website, But the other argument too is that this isn't statistically correct, and I said, well, shoot, you can't tell me that in the surveys that we've done in the past are always we get sort of people that are gonna be willing to do it, so we will be trying to just encourage everybody we know, and actually that's why we want to go to council with their blessing. If you guys all agree with this, we'll give their blessing for it. We'll also talk to other committees and really try to get others to buy in to help us gather information. Okay, so I don't know how much we're going exactly, but I think it's going to be helpful for us. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, when did you meet with them? Because when we met a week or two ago, I had a totally different feel.
I met with him on a Friday, the working meeting, I tuned in on it. That's the one you're talking about.
I don't remember if it was a week ago or 2 weeks.
Oh, okay, so with your guys' work, safety work? group?
I kind of came off, and maybe I was just, I don't know, when you listened, did you get a different feel?
This meeting is being recorded, I'll hold my tongue. Well, okay, well, when I met with him, yes, he totally wanted us to use a professional organization, but if we as a committee want to move forward with this, then we totally can. So he said that if you guys want to, he even suggested, like if I found a survey company or whatever I wanted to build it, or someone in our committee, we were going to just put in the questions that we had, build it. We could provide the link to the city, they would post it, he was gonna ask, and I haven't talked to him since this meeting, if they could put it in the electronic version of the water bills, paper copy, no one's gonna type in the address for that. I just have a feeling that you could put it on the paper bills that go to people's houses, but how many people are gonna type that into the browser? So, he said though, at the time that it isn't, it's a postcard, it's not a folder thing, because I go look at put in print and put an insert in, but he said, no, that's a postcard, so I didn't, what?
I get a water bill and it comes folded in an envelope.
Okay, well, I don't know, then he seemed to think that they were postcards, maybe that's changed.
They used to, yeah, no, there used to be envelopes now.
Okay, well, so, okay, he probably didn't know, he didn't know. Didn't know, I guess, but he said, oh, it's on a postcard, and I agreed that no one's typing it, but if we could put the survey in, but then we're not providing postage to mail back, they'd have to drop it off or something like that. Well, but if they wanted to, we'd say that you could go to the webpage and click on the link. So, at any rate, it's totally up to you. I'm trying to do what else he said. We could do this as a grassroots effort. We didn't have to do electronically. He said perhaps you guys would use, he said, a pyramid scheme where we each are given like 50, or everyone on other committees too, given like 50 of the surveys, and we try to talk to 5 friends and give them a stack, and those friends try to, okay, so that was a very grassroots effort. He said, well, if you guys don't want to do it electronically, but you're still passionate, could you find out so much money? But he said, I'm sure I can talk to Randy Lauer, the mayor, and if, he's buying in, if we spent, a small amount of money, he could probably get that through. But I still think we'd like to have buy-in from city council. But that's if this committee feels positive. If you guys don't want, I hate the effort that we worked on it, but you know what, if there isn't an interest, then we don't have to. It's interesting that one of the next things on our agenda items is that, I'm not gonna jump there, but one of the things was, our goals was, we've been talking about this since I got on this committee, is to find out how the community feels about public safety in Troutdale. So all aspects. So I feel like we've been leading up to it. So does anyone care?
Well, I still want to have like a booth on Friday. I know we get some people that do not live in Troutdale, but we do get a handful of those that are. And I mean, I just don't know why we can't just have a booth down there and then just have like a poster. How do you feel? Do you feel safe in Troutdale? please take this survey, and then just introduce ourselves, and then we can like take half-hour time slots. And,
Can I share something along that lines? So this past weekend, I went to the Fairview on the Green event, which I don't know if anybody else went there, but you know, it's kind of like loosely national night out, but not near the public safety connection. They have a lot of, it's more like your First Friday where they have a lot of vendors
I
and,
used to organize.
oh, there you go.
Community engagement committee.
But the point being that our booth, the sheriff's office booth, happened to be right next to their public safety committee booth. And like their booth was pretty, like they had some little spinning wheel and prizes, but like they had people at their booth pretty frequently. And I, it was kind of nice because people would come up and maybe have concerns that they would bring, and like I think part of it is if you're out there and you're visible, like those people who might not come here and say something, they're walking by and they're, I can walk another 10 feet to make my concern heard. And it was in a way beneficial that the sheriff's office booth was right next door, because if there was a concern we needed to address immediately, like we were right there to do that. But my point of that being that I think like you guys having that, like a booth or something like that would be a really cool way to like engage with the community.
This is Robbie. I agree with you, Captain, and I do think that, I don't know exactly what you're looking at. In case nobody knows, I work from home, so I deal with offline survey stuff all day. I don't think that we need to dedicate $400 to SurveyMonkey. I know exactly the platform that you're talking about, but looking at the makeup of the actual survey seemed fairly straightforward. There was not dynamic fields or anything that needed to be like out of the box. We could I could very easily put that into Google Forms for a free survey. The way that I envision it is that I think that the $400 would be a very, very big point of friction for the city council and for the mayor. I would rather, if we have wiggle room for some money, let's say we can do the survey for free, we'd like to take that money and put it, like Captain suggested, into the booth. The way that I see and envision it is that we could print out a big QR code, like a human-sized QR code, with big, huge text that says, take our public survey safety. And if we pop that up, it's like flies from the light. At least in my generation, if you see a QR code, you walk up and you scan it. But more importantly, we're also standing there encouraging people to scan it. We can engage with them face to face while they're on their phones filling out the survey. In addition, we can stand there with paper copies, and whenever somebody fills it out, we just take a second, quickly put it into the survey itself. So I think that we should detach from the idea of paying for survey software, because I don't think that that's necessary. We definitely do it for free and have the reporting capabilities on the back end, but then take that money or cash or whatever. I mean, we could put on a pretty killer booth for $200, $300. So.
That's, sure, this is Sherry. Robbie, I love it that if you can get that part figured out. I will say that I do still think it's super important if our strategy is only meeting in there at a booth, we've lost a huge portion of our community that we're trying to get their input. So I still want it to be able to go out in such a way, if it could go out, honestly, I tell you, if it came on the water bill and it told me what I type it in, if I just have to go to the city website and then I click on, it and I go into the survey, I could totally take the survey and that would be great. And then the other thing is, we had identified before that we knew there are communities that won't have access to some of these things. So, again, they might be closed now, I don't know, I'm not sure. Cherry
Park's no longer.
Okay, it's no longer, but there's some other places, so, what's the place partway up the hill here, Troutdale Heights, no, what's it? Troutdale Terrace? Troutdale Terrace. They are some that maybe don't get individual water bills. We said at one time, I feel like we were identifying some places that might not get individual water bills. They might not have the same type of you know, seeing it, because obviously you could put it in the Troutdale Champion, even in a QR code, you know, in there, maybe not human size. But then, you know, people could pull it up, but if somebody's not getting that piece of information, we still want it, because, I mean, I go back to the same thing. Parks, master plan is based off of, you know, some of that survey stuff. I had a total of 400 and some participants, and it's not even individual. It could have been because it was 2 surveys, so somebody could have participated in the first one and the second one. Less than 2.5% of our population. It's hard to make decisions when you've only engaged with 2.5% of the population.
Yeah, Mrs. Roderick, I totally understand that. I think it's important just to realize where we can meet our community, and I think we have a pretty strict deadline here in terms of setting up that booth. It's the first Fridays, which is
The last
this
week of
one,
September.
and then September. So I think that I totally validate and understand what you're saying. I think it'd be a really, really good baby step for us to put all of our focus and energy into the booth over the next month, because our next meeting is September 5th, which
We have
would
to get
be
approval.
The day before.
the day before the first Friday. So if we're gonna do this, we have a very, very limited amount of time. Do you know what our next steps would be? It would be, you said you wanted to have the city council blessing.
Yes,
maybe
which we're
tentative-
going to, but I think we go ahead, and if we are as a group in favor of getting this survey going, we get it set up,
That's what I'm saying.
and we will get the blessing. We've got the date, is it August 27th?
Yeah, something like that.
So we can go to
Before
the-
Victoria arranged it, was that for us to be before city council to present the survey there. So, yeah, we need to, and then we line up, we get a booth for September, and we, go ahead.
They have a booth, City of Troutdale, Parks was in it, and I forget who else was in it this last one. And they'll let you share it, and if you want an extra booth, just check, I think it's Molly. Is it Molly?
Yeah, I think so.
Just check with, and,
Because Parks is going to have one there tomorrow.
Yeah.
tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow.
Because
No.
last month was canceled because of the.
Yeah, some parks, and you're sharing it with somebody.
So can we go to the city council? If I can literally go home and within the next few days, pop that survey into Google Forms. I can send it out to everybody. If we can go with that and then like a mock-up of the supplies that we need for the booth, it would be like we probably have to do some sort of printing on like a poster board or something for the QR code, which less than $50, I would assume, depending on what we want to do. And then we would just need paper copies of the survey. We can do everything else.
Maybe really think at like the spinning wheel.
Yeah.
And little
Prizes.
prizes, yeah. just-
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we can start brainstorming these things and go to the council with everything that they need.
And check with Molly, she might have a spinning wheel, I'm not
I
sure.
think they do have.
Or a Plinko board.
Oh, yeah, something.
I played Plinko.
Just to add on, I do think, I like the idea, I know we want to give this out, but this gives us a chance to measure actually that we're going to get feedback on the questions, and we can survey.
I mean, to have nobody come, and I know that there's complaints in our community, I know that there's positives in our community, but they're not here. And the person that shows up all the time is Paul. Just but, you know, Paul always comes, and then, sometimes we have a commissioner show up, but, it would be nice to get ourselves out there and, you know, and, try to get our community involved somehow in coming.
Well, this Sherry, I kind of, in my own mind, I feel like I can sit here and give my own personal opinion about what we should do and what we shouldn't. But if I'm representing my community, it would be good if I knew what my community wanted, and I a little bit know some of what my neighbors might say, but it's pretty small. So it would be good if we had more, input. And again, from the standpoint of when we ran the survey, before we did a little bit of updates to it, we, handed it out to a few people and got some feedback, literally to 4 different people that lived in one house. And then I looked through it, they all had different opinions about stuff. Their feeling of safety or not being safe, their feeling about possibly being picked out or not being picked out, or, like whatever. So anyway.
So, we need to find out what the deadline though, when we go for the water bill. Because I'm backing up and I'm saying that I believe we need to get this out there. Okay,
The water bills here out right after the first, they come in during.
okay, so see, I'm concerned that we get, and I don't know how long we should have the survey available, but we get the data back, because part of the thing was to maybe, our objective at the top says that the contracts are up, sorry. But, we wanna know if the community has some issues with it, that we need to address in the new contracts or whatever we're doing. So, I think we need to get this back like soon as possible.
I think, my takeaway from the, working group was that for that, if they wanted to do, a survey that would be done by, a professional group, for that, the contracts and such. So I think this would be separate.
But I think it'd be,
Yeah.
Carol, we did have that discussion, and, while I understand, I disagree. And so I think that we need to have some kind of point, even if they're gonna do professional, let them do the professional, but let's get started and get out there.
Yeah, and I think the first Friday focus, it's gonna take a lot just to get that off the ground, so I think that's a great first step is get it to city council, and then we'll have the other stuff ready to go.
I think October would be a good aiming point
So how
for
would
any
you-
water bill.
So how long do you think that we should have this survey available for people to answer?
This is Robbie, I don't think that we need to put a limit on it. I think that I don't think it needs to be that serious, for lack of a better phrase. I think that we need to just collect whatever data that we can. I don't think that it's wise for us to be focusing on shooting out the entire community, specifically because there are noted worries from city officials, but more importantly, like what I was saying, we want to make sure that the questions that we're asking are actually reflecting what we're looking for. I think it's a perfect scenario for us to start with a really, really small sample size of whoever wants to come up and engage with us, that's who it is, and then we think about our next steps. I think we're projecting too far out here and getting bogged down and trying to figure out the whole big picture instead of figuring out the 30 days in front of us and what steps we need to take. So I think that we should just focus on the booth, and then we can talk about setting out to the whole city, because we might get yelled at. we might get scolded for setting up the survey, so we gotta make sure that we're doing all of our due diligence before we like throw together plans for a water bill that we might not know.
Okay, and I see it as, we needed to take this before city council to get their approval on it, which is the 27th. And we could be spending all of this energy too, coming up with the idea of a booth, and then the city council puts the kibosh on it.
I think we already came up with our idea for the booth. It's pretty straightforward. I think it's, if we go to them and we have this massive ask of, we're not only gonna ask for the booth, but we're gonna ask for the survey on the water bill, and we're gonna ask to engage with like all these other methods, then they go, whoa, 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 whoa. I think we need to bring in a professional group for all that. If we go, hey, Robbie, Lila, Carol, want to go down to the city and speak to whoever wants to walk up to them and just ask them some questions. I think that's much more palatable for the city council, who's very well known money tight right now, and not approving a lot of decisions. If we could just go forward to them and say, we need a poster board, your spare wheel, and a table, that's all we gotta get, and start answering some of these questions, I think that's much more acceptable.
So first Friday in September.
So September would be the goal, we can't do tomorrow, so.
No, oh my gosh, no, like, okay.
And keep in mind, there's other events too. I mean, like, if you're keeping this open-ended with kind of not really a timeline or anything, like, I mean, you got Christmas tree lighting where there's a lot of booths set up and, you know, a variety
Like a
of,
Halloween.
right, a variety of other events, so.
I think we just take it as it comes, we start with this, and then we're gonna know, oh, we did not have enough people, we have to put it on the water bill, but then we can go to the city council and be like, look, we tried this, we did this is the next step, and they go, okay, great. That's how I kind of see it playing out in my head, but keep me honest. Because I just don't wanna bite off, I don't wanna bite off more than we can chew, especially when we're asking for concrete things from the city council, because if we have to get their buy-in, like she's saying, like, we have to just take it one step at a time. Well, we know that, according to her, that Ray said that we could do these things, we have that green light, let's go with it. I don't think we need to ask for more than we got approved for, because then they'll definitely say no. Like, it's surprising that they say yes at all. So I think that we should move forward with just that survey.
Just clarifying.
Yeah.
Ray said he would have to talk to the
Right.
mayor. to
That's all,
see.
I didn't even think we would get that far, based on Victoria's context that she provided previously, it was nothing, and I thought it was dead in the water.
I never said no.
Oh, sincere apologies, before, I thought that we were going to raise it.
I said, Ray said we could take it to city council. I arranged all that.
Oh, okay. So you're following up with Ray?
And Ray also just gave me his opinion about we're not gonna get really professional results, and he thought it would be better done by professionals.
Okay.
And that at this time, the staff would not approve it. Now, the little stuff, but
Right.
I never said he said
Okay,
no.
apologies, I thought that I was interpreting it as he was saying, no, like, don't move forward, but
No,
it's.
he wanted to
Okay.
put us on the agenda if he would have said it.
Good to know. Thank you.
I just go back to the same thing though, sorry, business major, took marketing and research and that kind of stuff. And one of the things you have to be careful of is, you know, if what we were targeting is people's perceptions of the market, we would do that. But people's perception is safe with it coming throughout our community, we have to get more than those that are coming down to the market.
Sure, and we will. I'm not saying that, I'm not, this is.
So
these are not
that's my
mutually
whole
exclusive
thing,
things.
just, it does have to be bigger
Absolutely.
than that.
Yeah, it's just a.
And it
soft
will,
launch.
right, yeah, I think that we just, they're not mutually exclusive things, like, we can do this and that, but we would have to do this, even if they were to say yes on the water bill, we still wouldn't be able to get it out in September, like, we'd still have to aim
Oh,
for
right.
October. So even if we were gonna shoot it out to a wider audience, this would still be the first step, so I think it would be wise for us to focus on the first step, exclude like our grand master plan for the rest of the survey, because I entirely agree with you. We're saying within the next 30 days, like, we gotta start getting to work if we're gonna do something, so.
Yeah, and I can, I know nothing about data. I mean, as somebody in a computer, me, computers don't get along, Robbie, so, you should know that now.
Sure.
But I go back to teaching here in, just 3 weeks, I'm back and doing teacher stuff, so, if I can help do and put things together and meet and be there on that Friday, but, I can help set up, I can do quite a bit of that type of stuff, but I just need to know what
Exactly.
and when we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
And then, this is just my question. Is my understanding that, we present to the council. We talk to the council and get, say we don't get approval, okay, so then it's the other one. But if we get approval, the city does what the council tells them. It's the councilors that approve whether the city does things. It's not right. It is the city council, from my understanding. So if the city council says we're gonna do this, they then in turn say, hey, Ray, we would like the city employees to do this. And that's what I thought how it ran. It wasn't the other way around.
But you have to remember that oftentimes the city council is going to look to their subject matter experts in the city to get get an opinion on like, hey, does this make sense? Or is this cost effective? And do you have the staffing to do this? Things like that. So, you know, it is a joint marketing effort, and you kind of have to sell this. It's got to be marketable, so the city doesn't say, absolutely, "Look, we can't possibly staff this, we can't do this," because that might turn the city council on you. But I think what you guys are talking about right now was starting out with like kind of this grassroots effort being in places, like that builds momentum. Because once you start getting some results back and you have some metrics where you can say, oh, we got 100 surveys and we're seeing some trends here, like that might help you market more and get more from the council when you're saying like, we actually have some stuff here versus kind of a pie in the sky, like we want to do all this massive stuff without any kind of results thus far.
Okay, so I say that we have to talk to Molly about getting into the booth.
Are you guys there on First Fridays at all?
Usually some of us are there. We don't have a booth, but usually like Deputy Boar or I or somebody comes by. So, but if you guys were gonna have a booth, I could absolutely come down and hang out and hand out stickers and bring the comfort dog.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you have the rental.
2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just writing down, and you guys can help me out, what else we have to do about that. Talk to Molly about being in the booth for First Friday in September.
Check whether there's like supplies, like spare supplies she has just laying around.
Okay.
We have to get like prices, so.
Yeah, let's
somehow we
brainstorm,
have
what would
to-
they be?
Well, prices normally, what are they, like, sometimes I've seen little candies or little like saber thingies or
Yeah.
little ruler thingies.
I mean, you
or-
could like go to Dollar Tree and find probably tons of things, little fidget spinners and.
You
So
can
you
go,
have travel pins and the extra things like that.
But we can only give it to them
If
if they fill out the
you
survey.
don't get a spin of it.
You only get whatever. So we gotta-
A survey gets a spin of the wheel.
There we go. Oh, there we go.
Waste management was after theirs last year or the year before.
So you'll have to make sure you have some type of iPads or computers
Well,
or something.
my thought, everybody has a smartphone. I mean, if somebody doesn't, that's when we break out the backup plan for the paper surveys. But my idea is that we don't, and that was my first thought too. I was like, okay, who have iPads that we can bring? But I think if somebody's there and they see the QR code, we just go, hey, pull out your phone, scan it on your phone, fill it out on your phone, because it'll autofill. And you go, autofill all your contact info, we just want these questions. And I think if I remember from them, it was just simple inputs on the question. It wasn't
Oh, yeah,
long
we
forms.
actually don't even want to know, we don't have to know that.
Exactly. It's gonna be
Contact. We just want to
super-
know
it's gonna be
there's a
super
map,
fast.
there's the hardest.
We
thing
can
is the
literally
map.
just go, hey, it's 10 buttons, it'll autofill your contact info, and then they fill it out right then and there. The backup thing is that we would come stock with paper copies and they go, oh, my phone's dead, I don't have a phone. We go, great, fill it out, put your contact info, and I'll input it, just like you were filling it out online, and then we log their data as if they had filled it out on their phone.
Okay,
That's how I see it playing out in my head, and that hits both demographics, those with and without their phones. Like I said, I come from community engagement, and that is what door knockers would do. Like door knocker surveys, they would go with their iPad, obviously different scenario, have them fill it out, or if somebody said, I don't want any iPad, they go, great, do it on paper. And that works. So that's how I see it playing out in my head, and that is super, super low overhead. We would literally only have to get a printout of the QR because we need it to be a crisp image.
And I appreciate that, and I think just because you weren't here for this, the envisioning of the survey, you know, where we say something,
it's not on that page, Sherry, it's on the goals page, the one that's separate, that is the survey, when we first
Yeah, I'm talking about the survey.
Yeah, but the survey had, when we were in our small work group, Mary, you and I, then we didn't have we had the things we wanted to do at the top, and then we did the survey, and then we ended up separating this on a separate page.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. All I was trying to say was like, if there's the question, you know, that says, how satisfied are you with the level of communication between the police department and the community, 1, 2, 3, 4, or NA, and then why?
Yeah,
And so, me personally, if I was doing a survey on my phone,
right.
and I'm doing and I just start saying, I'm not filling out the why.
Well,
Forget
so this is where my survey expertise comes into play. Because what we can do is we could set, and we're getting into the nuances here, so I'll ask that you trust me on this, because we can set it to where if they answer a scale of 5, 5 being best, 1 being not great, they answer 4 or 5, great, we'll take their answer. If they set 1, 2, or 3, we want to know more. And it'll pop up an additional box that then prompts them to write why. So it appears 10 questions, but then if they start answering it and they have things that they're not responding positively to, we can have different dialogues that open up within the survey and prompt them to tell us why.
Okay, what I was getting at is, because I believed you could do all that.
Yeah.
I was getting more at if I was on my phone and I had the why, and I'm not, you're fast with my thumbs, I just
Yeah.
feel like,
That's fine.
I don't want
We'll take the
it.
no anyway. We'll take the no.
But this generation will.
Yeah, we will sit there. and
Our
do that all
generation,
day.
or probably will be like,
Paper survey.
Well, and
We're
you
just
could,
gonna
you
do
guys
that.
could have a computer there where you could literally, for people who,
Mhm.
That's all.
you could potentially have someone that
can't.
can't read.
Uh-huh.
So you could have something, you could just ask them.
That's why we're
And go
there.
through
So
it.
that's what I'm saying, like, I think that we, the human presence, fill in for the deficits that you're thinking about. And even if they don't want to sit there and type, that's perfectly fine. We'll take the simple clicking on the rating that they gave us. We'll take that data, even if they don't give us the why. The people who do give us the whys, we are grateful, we're thankful for them, but it's not a requirement.
And
Okay.
and I can tell you that, people who are really dissatisfied with something
Yeah.
will have no problem figuring out how on their phone to tell you about it. It's mostly the people who are like satisfied, they don't want to tell you why. They're like, yeah, I said I'm satisfied, that's good enough. But I read a lot of Google reviews, and you can clearly see that people who are dissatisfied will take lots of time to tell you why they're dissatisfied. So I think you're gonna have some of your middle kind of like your 3s, like, I'm kind of in the middle, like, it's not important enough for me to say anything about either way. But when you get your 1s and 2s, those people are gonna take the time to say why, I believe.
We forced the survey on purpose so that there could be nothing middle, you had to choose 1 to 4, so that you either decided you were on one side or you're on the other.
I was just wanted to do a time check, because we're at 2 hours being
Okay.
here, and we
Sorry.
still have a lot more, so I don't know if there's something you want to push or what.
Okay.
I just want us to make sure we.
Okay, so.
Very quickly, can you send, because you just pointed out the nuance and the difference between the different surveys, can you please send out just in a simple email format, like what the questions are?
Yeah,
Because
then
you
I,
just said that you split them up, the document that Sherry was pointing out.
oh, that was, it was the, how to make, I thought she was talking about, how to publicize it. So we talked about Facebook and.
Is this the most accurate copy, Sherry, that you have in your hand? Is that the most accurate survey there?
I have.
Because that's the one that I have.
Does it say Troutdale, public safety at the top?
We want your opinion.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, that should be the one that I got last week or last month.
Yeah, I haven't changed it, that's exactly,
This is.
Okay,
that's exactly.
I'll be able to look at this in a day.
So you'll notice that we had NA, because we
Yep.
didn't want people to feel like they needed to put a rating.
Yep.
When you have no experience, then it's.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, I just have to go over this though to know what I need to do, you guys. So, gonna checking on supplies, I'll need to be printing the QR code on a board, but first, who gets the QR code?
So I'm going to generate, so you can put my action items down as going ahead and putting this survey into a Google form
Okay.
survey. I will go ahead and craft it, and I will generate the QR code, and I will send out an email with the link to the survey and the picture of the QR code that we would need for it to be linked to it.
Okay,
And then we would be able to run with that. And I could even do a mock-up graphic of the QR code, this public safety and equity in the logo. We want your opinion, something like
So how do you get the QR code on,
that. So what I do is I will generate the link to the survey, then I take it to a QR software and I link the two together. So whatever QR code I generate will always go to the survey. Then I just pull up the mock-up of the QR code, we send it off to printing, and that's it.
okay, so we have to get that to the city to print on the board.
I will provide all of that, and I'll provide like all of the common printing sizes and make one permanent to the size that we need.
Okay, but
I'll
then
provide
what
that
will
to
the city have to,
All that we need to figure out is how much it would cost to get that mock-up printed onto an actual poster board that we can put on a poster board stand.
okay.
If anybody has that, I just will create them on this marketplace, dang it. So if anybody has that would be awesome, but I don't think it'll be very much, I think it'll be like $30 to get a poster board printed out at whatever.
Okay,
So my action items are doing the survey, providing the QR code and mock-up, and I'll have that to you.
okay.
Very
And then I will find out about the cost and where we will get it printed, okay? And then we have to print paper copies for the site, or for the booth. I don't know how many you guys think we should print out.
probably normally show up
And then
on.
we need this.
maybe 50 copies, in my opinion.
It depends on weather and all that stuff, but, you know, I'd say 50 to 100, and then not all those people are gonna stop by your booth, so.
So maybe do that wheel.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then.
well, you guys are gonna
the
sell this
wheel.
booth,
And then we got
know
the- ask them for supplies, the wheel, and.
See if they have any like extra things hanging around that we can,
Yes.
swag, Troutdale swag.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I mean,
Troutdale swag,
Troutdale
that's right.
stuff, yeah.
Okay, so, that'll finish up the safety survey, so thank you, Robbie, for volunteering to do all this stuff, excellent, I love it. Okay, so moving on to agenda item number 8, I don't know, you guys want to, talk about that goal sheet that was on the last of your packet, or do you guys want to, talk about that next time? We're just trying to remember a long time ago what we had talked about when Chloe was here, and nobody really remembered, and Sarah found this and included it. Twilight.
I'd like to propose we move this to next month's agenda, because I think there's time to discussion.
Okay,
This is Robbie, I second.
okay. Okay, all in, is there any more discussion? Okay, all in favor of moving this, agenda item 8 to next month, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then moving on to, agenda item 9, so what we have to talk about, we'll have this one next month, and then we also, night out. So,
Yes.
that's for sure what I have down.
Because
And
the
then
next
we'll
one's
follow up,
August.
we'll talk again about,
The next night out,
Is that the-
August 6th, Tuesday,
Yeah.
at Maywood,
Maywood, okay.
yeah, Maywood Park, August 6th, and that's kind of the wrap up, because everything else is, for the most part, done.
I was just gonna say that, I went to the one that we village, so I'll have a report on that night.
Yeah, I got it.
And then Oregon Trails comes out, right? Is that the 6th too? I will look that up.
That, the Victoria sent the list to us of
Yeah.
all of the
Yeah.
dates that she had determined, yeah, so if you guys purpose that.
There's my impression, yeah.
And then, when are we meeting in city council? August
August
27th?
27th, so if, all of you, if you can attend, great, otherwise I'll be talking about, what we're doing all this survey, just exactly what we're planning, and we'll hopefully get their blessing, and then, not, you guys will hear about it at our meeting, a week later, I guess.
Well, is this also, are you gonna also talk to them, I mean, about what we're
proposing.
doing, and then
not going to, unless you guys want me to, talking about anything beyond what we're doing on first Friday.
I don't think we should.
No, no, I would think we would do one step first.
Yeah, okay.
And then I would propose going back in 6 months,
Yeah.
going, this is what the data reflected, now we want to,
6 months.
3 months, it doesn't matter. I just think we need to
I
make
mean, their dates, small things.
just like small steps. If we inundate the city council all in one meeting, I think that would not be.
So I'll just tell them, we will be talking about possibly getting on your agenda in the future to follow up with you with
Yes.
what we have learned from us.
Well, I mean,
So I will
okay.
set a set date, and I know their schedule's been full, so.
Am I confused? We're talking about doing the first Friday and then waiting 6 months or 3 months before we broach it again with city council? Or at the same time, we're talking about the water bill and stuff?
We're not.
That's too different.
I think that you guys have indicated that you don't want to get started with water bill stuff until after we've done. I personally am in favor of doing water bill because I think we need this stuff for public safety, but, okay, for the work group, but they're talking about, you guys are in the know, 3 of you here are in the know of what's happening in that work group.
It's not, this is Robbie, it's not no to the water bill. It's no to the water bill on August 27th. It's just if we're gonna ask somebody to cook a turkey at Thanksgiving, we don't want to also ask them to cook stuffing and sweet potatoes and mac and cheese and cornbread. We wanna ask them to cook the turkey, and then maybe next Thanksgiving, ask them to cook another thing. So moving with that metaphor, we wanna ask for one thing, get them warmed up to it. I think maybe what Carol was trying to say with the 6 months is like what Catherine was saying, we have other events that we can go to in the meantime. If we decide that we need more data to go back, we can, but it's not going to the city council and saying, we need this, and then in 6 months, we're gonna need this, and then in a year, we're gonna need this, because they're gonna go, well, I don't wanna say no to all of that.
Okay, I'm gonna respectfully say that I think that we should be following up after we see whatever happens on the 5th or 6th or whatever day that is. After that
That is,
takes place,
yeah.
I say we follow up in September with city council, with some of the data we have still collecting, because like I said before, these special events are not necessarily what gets all Troutdale residents. We're getting this certain group of people that are attending this kind of stuff. So that's me.
I would just, I love the first Friday. I would say then we come back for our meeting and we look at what we found and then produce the why, right? Because I think having so much, when I watch the city council meetings and I see people be very successful, they have the objectives well laid out, clear what they want to do with the timeline. And I feel like we have that next timeline for the next month. The other, we don't have laid out. And it might be that we're like, whoa, this is amazing, we got some good stuff. I want to think about something completely different and bigger than that. So I really I love the idea of let's just get it launched. And then we're going to move on to step 2 once we look at what we have and can be thoughtful about our next ask and that clear objective.
And we have to also, Carol, be aware that you can't get on the city council meeting fast. They have lots on their to-do list that they have to discuss, and it could be two months down the road before we can even get on the agenda next. And it's not, I mean, Victoria worked hard at getting us in August, and it took her 2 months, 2 or 3 months to get her. It's not quick.
That was because they weren't meeting for 2 sessions worth, but
I think if it were me, I would, in my presentation to city council, I would get that initial presentation out, get them to buy off, and then part of my request would be that your follow-ups would be with city staff. Because then you might, theoretically, you could eliminate the having to go back to council every time. And you could start working this through city staff with this blessing of the council moving forward. So, you know, that way it prevents you from having to every time like set up and get on the council agenda and go talk to them about you know, the one event that you went to, like, I'd probably put it out there as, this is what we want to do. We want to report to city staff about the success and next steps. And get council to support that. And then that way, at least it prevents you from having to do the council thing every, you know, because the council doesn't want to see you about the same topic every month.
I think we lose too much ground. It takes too much long. It's taken so long to get this kind of survey going. That's why I just don't want to see, and it's true. I think that the reason why we're going to city council is because we want their blessing, we want their buy-in, we want them to be encouraging their neighbors and themselves taking the survey, and, you know, so we want buy-in. I don't know how you guys feel about also going to other committees if we get the councils to encourage them, come and talk in non-agenda items at the beginning of theirs and say, public safety, we're doing this survey and we just would love for you guys to fill it out, plus talk to your neighbors and everybody you know to try to get, you know, get us feedback. And then if you guys are doing a survey, come to us, we'll promote your survey or whatever, so.
Well, I think also because it could show, and if it's worthwhile or, you know, getting good results, there could be other committees that go, wow, we'd like to get feedback, you know, on some other issues or something.
Right, yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay, so next, if you are able to go on August 27th to the city council meeting, great. So we'll talk about surveying in and night out and our goals next month. Okay, so next meeting is September 5th, 6:30. Is that good with everybody? No objections? Okay, moving on. Committee members' comments. Victoria.
I have a few things to say. Number one, I want to give kudos to Woodrow for trying to set up the, I can't remember, it's a police cadet
Mm-hmm.
and the fire cadet program.
Yeah,
again.
explorers.
Oh, yeah.
The explorers, yeah. I think that's a really important part of this committee, to keep the youth involved and learn that police are safe.
Yeah.
I also want to say, I put my heart and soul in this committee. I'm sorry I did not meet your expectations. I did everything you asked. I got all the speakers you requested. I was really disappointed when we were given tasks by the city council and they kept being tabled. If you vote for them to be tabled, I can't do anything. The example was the red light cameras. You did do the fire ban right away, but I pushed you on that. And the fire fees, that took months and months. That should have been, I gave it to you and we did it the next meeting. That was a very easy thing to do. I'm glad you finished it last month. I'm just hoping, I thought I discussed some of this with goals, but our goals, when we're given a task, I'd like to see us get it completed in a timely manner. I mean, they wait and wait for our opinion. And to me, it's a compliment to want to know what we think and what the community thinks. And when they ask us to do that, I think we should follow through. And just to let you know, on the red light cameras, as I've been going to these night outs, Gresham is also concerned about 257 and stuff. And I said, well, you guys are one side, we're the other side. And I heard they were discussing, I don't know who, and he didn't say, but they were discussing red light cameras too. That's just information to know. Also, if an email is sent out that's not to be discussed, I'd like it to be not discussed until the meeting. Okay? Informational emails are sent out, but they're only sent out for information. They're not for us to discuss until we're at the meeting and the meeting is taking place. Okay. All that aside, I did attend 2 night outs. I thought, and I know we're gonna discuss it next month, but just so you know what to look for. Wood Village was excellent. I loved it. Captain Asper was there, the dog was there, and almost every single booth had a wheel. It was just amazing. I thought, really? I mean, they had a lot of different things. I mean, that had nothing to do like McDonald's and banks and things like that. Everybody had little things to give away. But some of the things that's really good that I've been trying to get this going for years, so I hope it goes. There was things like the Upriver Village, they help aging people at home, the Latino Network, the Departments of Commerce, the Departments of Transportation, Ride Connections, human trafficking in our backyard. When someone told me we had a bunch of Troutdale, I said, we might have a long time ago, but I don't know of any right now. Because the truck stop used to be that anyway, they had recycling. They had all sorts of stuff for the kids. A taekwondo booth, a soccer setup. They had water slides, bouncy houses. Both of them had water slides and bouncy houses. And Rockwood had tractor rides for the kids too. The FBI was at the Rockwood one, and then Gresham Fire was at both, and Gresham Police was at the Rockwood, and Wood Village we had in Multnomah County. Now, I just think it's great to get the community together. Captain Asbo, when I saw him, had a great idea too. We don't want to do it when everybody else is doing it right at the beginning of August, but maybe have it at the end of August, the beginning of September. And that way we can get some places to get some of the kids' school supplies and things. And Verizon was giving them out last Saturday, so if we're doing this next year, we can talk to Verizon, and instead of them giving them out at the store, have them have a booth and give them out. And the other thing I thought of, we have to check with Molly about all this anyway, is maybe have it in Columbia Park and tie it in with a movie night. So they come to all our rooms and everything, and then they can go to the movie afterwards. But one of the real go-getter things was they all had free food. So we have to figure out, get donations and things. Rockwood had free hamburgers, free hot dogs, free chips. Wood Village had free hot dogs, cotton candy made right there, soda and water. And they both had some kind of music playing, and some of them had entertainment. So there's Oregon City, Happy Valley, Maywood, and Gresham all having them on Tuesday night. Gresham is having one. I said I'd update it. Main Park, 5:30 to 8:30. I'm planning to go to them all and see. I got lots of pictures. I have my math all figured out. I'm at teacher things all that day, and then I'm just heading over. So anyway, oh, and I networked with people. I got lots of cards. I said we might be asking them if we do it. I said we're looking into it to come, and most of them were very excited about come. So if you go and you see interesting booths, try and grab some cards and things so we can call them. Now, I know when I go to Oregon City and Happy Valley, they'll be more into their own cities. But, there's some things that are all, well, there's five in this county, but there's some things that are statewide and things too. So, anyway, that's it, sorry.
And just a note to that, if you guys do decide to do this and you're looking for like vendors, like we can certainly, the sheriff's office has a number of contacts and connections. We can certainly give you guys a list of contacts for, especially if you want it to be public safety related or things like that. So that would be one of those things that we could certainly be a resource for.
Oh, and Ring Village had free massages. They were short. And then Rockwood had free haircuts. I mean, and lots of people come. So if you want to if we want to interact with the community, that's the best way one of the best ways I can do that. And the Explore Cadet program.
Nothing for me.
Nothing good for me. Sure.
I just want to piggyback something on what Victoria said. She brought up something again about red light cameras, and I could see that in goals. It might be something we would want to put on a question on the survey. Or, you know, would you like to see a red light camera at 257? I don't know. And we could get feedback.
We add that question to ours. Okay, anything else, sure?
No.
That's all. Thanks.
Wow.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you guys for all of your input tonight. Good meeting. Thank you, Captain,
Of course.
providing us with all that extra information too.
Also, if I may, I know you guys have had some interest in having and learning about the comfort dog. So please let me know if you want to add that as an agenda item, because then I could coordinate the handler and because to be here and all that kind of stuff, and be prepared to give a little presentation about the dog and what it does. So just let me know so I can plan that in advance.
If that's okay with you guys, we will put that off only because we talked so long on all these other things. I feel like we got plenty for next month, so we'll talk about it another time.
Yeah, because that'd be a good one to invite our neighbors to it.
Yes.
To make sure.
Yes. Okay, so then I just had one other thing I wanted to clarify. I did clarify with Ray, which, like I said, I just wanted people to understand this. The city does not pay the fire fees. It's included in the contract with Fresh and Fire. So the city is not billed for fire inspections today. They're not billed. So there wasn't a thing that there was an outlay of the city pay. I just want to clarify that, because that's what I thought. And I think that we thought the city was getting billed for every one of those inspections. And then I was going to ask the captain on follow-up, did we have extra issues with July 4th, or was that not? Because that gal came in and talked to us.
It depends on who you ask, so.
Okay. Okay.
So, I mean, we had some neighborhoods that were more greatly impacted than others. And my goal is to hopefully be staffed to a point where we can start better addressing fireworks issues in years to come. This year, I didn't have the staffing level to dedicate deputies to simply do fireworks stuff. We had life safety stuff that took priority, but hopefully we will, by next 4th of July, be better staffed, and I can evaluate whether we can start assigning deputies that solely respond to fireworks, because I think that's going to have a greater impact.
Yeah, okay. And, okay, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We'll do it twice.
Sorry, I just have one more thing, and I know we have talked about this before. I'm wondering if we, when we create our agenda, if we should try to put times on it, just so that we keep better, just because we're going, some of us have very early mornings and things like that, so.
This is Robbie, I second that idea.
Okay. I don't know how to put how much time it takes on any of these, but, I guess,
So you can dedicate like 30 minutes to survey and 30 minutes to goals, and 30 minutes to captain ad. You can pick what you think it's gonna be. Sarah might help you. with that.
okay. I'll try to keep it to 2 hours. I'm one that lets people talk wherever they go. Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn. This is Carol, I make a motion to adjourn.
Sherry, I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys very much. Thank you.
No.
Well, it didn't